National travel will restart very cautiously from the 1st of October. Let's drill down into that crucial sector. One, of course, that's largely ground to a halt in the past 6 months of our lockdown. You know, just over a week ago, Tshifhiwa Tshibhengwa, CEO of the Tourism Business Council, said a decision to unlock our borders to international travel had to be made within 7 days. Well, that decision was announced tonight, and Mr. Tshibhengwa joins me now. We're also joined by Ross Volk, MD of MSC Cruises South Africa. Tshifhiwa, I'd just like to start with you. You threw down the gauntlet in a way, saying it has to happen in the next 7 days. How are you feeling tonight?
Look, it's a welcomed announcement by the President. We have been working hard for the past 6 months. To ensure that our sector gets opened again. And this type of an announcement, it's quite useful for us to be able to communicate to our international markets to say now that the President have announced, we are ready to go back to business, although we know that it's going to be specific countries. It is an important milestone for us. And it's, for many employees that are within the tourism sector, it's a very emotional day today. Many people have been sitting at home, those that are dependent solely on international travel, although we are cautious about, which countries will be, allowed to travel into South Africa. But we are hopeful, and we do believe that this announcement goes a long way in opening, tourism in this country and making sure that people are able to travel, within the domestic front. They're able to go and do things that they need to do. We have developed protocols that are being used now for domestic travel. People should be able to travel anywhere, go on cruise and do things that they need to do and go back to some level of normalcy. So we do welcome this announcement tonight.
Yes, and speaking of cruises, let's bring in Ross Volk, MD of MSC Cruises in South Africa. Ross, thanks very much for your time. I would imagine you are similarly relieved. What exactly does it mean for cruises? Because we know about he mentioned ports of entry, he mentioned airports, but do you have an understanding of how this will impact cruise ships to and from South Africa?
Thanks very much for inviting me on. I think that it's a positive step forward in terms of opening up cruising for South Africans. We agree with the President in terms of the fact that the tourism sector is one of its greatest economic drivers, and we're ready to do our part. Tshifhiwa mentioned the protocols that have been implemented locally. We've been working over the last 6 months with various medical facilities around the world to develop a protocol which we believe will be very strong in terms of ensuring safety and fun on board the vessel. And one of the big game changers is universal testing and screening of every passenger that gets on board one of MSC's ships, both locally and internationally.
Yes, and will that be exactly what the President announced, that no longer than 72 hours before you get onto a cruise liner, you've got to have a negative test in your possession?
I think he's referring to people coming into the country. I mean, there was a little bit of uncertainty around returning South Africans, but our local season here operates with South Africans going on board to Mozambique and coming back, and we would screen and test every passenger before they left port and were allowed to board on a 3 or 4 night departure from Durban or Cape Town.
All right, Tshifhiwa, I'd like to bring you in again. This list that the President mentioned, we don't yet know which countries are on the list. We know, for example, that the USA and India have got the highest infections at this point. But we also know that list could change and come and go. Recovery is not a straight line, and tourism is not going to be a straight line. We have seen other countries open up, then have to rapidly close, and South Africa is quite far away from some of our biggest markets. So this could be incredibly tricky. What do you know about who is likely to be on the list and whether South Africans will be on the UK's list, which they haven't up to now, to go and visit that side?
Look, I think what's most important is that, whatever we do has to be scientific, and it has to be guided, from the advice of medical experts. If we just do things in a way that we say, well, we choose 1 or 2 or 3 countries, it's not going to work. We need to look at our source markets. If you look at the United States as an example, it's a big country. So if one says that, there is COVID-19 highest rates are in Kansas, and not in California, and whereas most of the people who come to South Africa are from California, we ought to look at that. So all that I'm simply saying is that we have to have science behind it. When we choose these markets, we need to be, as an industry, involved in that, because we work with these markets. We know where our tourists come from. We know the profile of our tourists. We know that majority of people who come to South Africa go for medical checks before they come to South Africa, even pre-COVID. So we need to make sure that we understand that people already are cautious when they travel to South Africa and Africa in general. So we need to make sure that while we choose this country, we do so carefully. We don't shoot ourselves in the foot. Because our source markets are our source markets. If we go to our source markets and say, you cannot come to South Africa, they will go elsewhere in a country where they're allowed to travel. And therefore, we may lose them forever. So we've got to be careful. We need to be included as the tourism sector. We are the one who conduct tourism, across the value chain, from getting people from overseas, bringing them into the country, making sure that they enjoy the country, and making sure that they go back home safely. So we need to be involved in the choosing of this country, and it has to be scientific. And we need to understand what are we relying on to make those decisions.
And I guess it has to be drawn up really, really quickly. A question to both of you very quickly. Ross, I know that the cruise liner industry has been really hard hit throughout this pandemic. Tomorrow morning, when you get up with your first cup of coffee, what's the first thing on your to-do list?
It's the same as it's been for the last 5 months, to ensure that we're ready to operate safely and securely with the health of passengers and South Africans at heart. It's something we've been striving towards for the last 5 or 6 months, and it's something we'll strive to do on an ongoing basis. So it'll be the same as it has been for the last 6 months.
And Tshifhiwa, what's going to be first on your list? Will it be getting that country list up and running?
Yeah, absolutely. That's first on my list, to make sure that the list of the countries that will be included or announced, it's scientific. And once we do that, we need to work on demand stimulation. This is a long journey to recovery. We need to make sure that the recovery plan that has been put together, by the Department of Tourism and the Minister, it's funded so that we can be able to realize the goals of recovery. So it's a long journey. This is but one milestone that we have achieved, and I believe that going forward we need to ensure that all the other legacy issues that have been put at the back burner because of COVID-19, including the e-visas, the NPTR in terms of the permits for the vehicles that transport tourists, we need to solve those legacy issues. So for us, this is a milestone. The journey continues. We need to make sure that the industry thrives and people are able to go back to work. So we do welcome this. It is an exciting move. It puts us in a positive position in terms of other African countries that we're competing with.
Yeah, we're back in the game and we've got to get it right. Thank you very much, CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, Tshifhiwa Tshibhengwa, and also MSC Cruises South Africa, MD Ross Volk. Thanks very much to both of you.